A hotel hallway security camera. Fixed angle. Harsh fluorescent lighting washing out colors into sickly yellows and grays. Timestamp burning in the corner. 2:47 a.m. August 19, 2022. What you're watching lasted only 15 seconds. But it would become the most critical piece of evidence in a case that forced the nation to confront what consent actually means. The camera captures a long corridor. Dated patterned carpet. Wallpaper that's seen better decades. Dim wall sconces casting weak light that barely reaches the floor. From the left side of frame, a young woman in a bright yellow dress stumbles into view. She's barely ambulatory, using the wall for support with every unsteady step. Hand dragging along the surface to keep herself upright. 8 feet behind her, a figure follows. Deliberately. Not rushing. Just following. Muscular build. Mixed Latino descent. Covered in dark tattoos. Wearing only a black leather vest. No shirt. Moving with purpose. The camera doesn't pan. Doesn't zoom. Doesn't judge. It simply records as both figures disappear off the right side of the screen. 15 seconds. That's it. Within 72 hours, one of them would be dead. And the other would claim it was consensual. But this 15-second clip would tell a very different story. One of predation, opportunism, and a justice system forced to answer a question it had avoided for too long. What does consent mean when someone can barely stand? The Riverside Hotel in downtown Portland, Oregon. Not a luxury establishment. Mid-tier business hotel catering to conventions, tourists, travelers looking for affordable downtown rates, rooms running about $90 a night during off-peak seasons. Night of August 18, 2022. Hotel hosting overflow crowd from a music festival at the nearby amphitheater. Lobby, chaotic. Festival goers checking in late. Security attempting to manage noise complaints. Desk clerks overwhelmed by volume. Among the guests that night, Madison Cooper. 24 years old. Graphic designer from Sacramento who'd driven north with 2 friends for the festival. Everyone who knew Madison described her the same way. Responsible, careful, moderate drinker. She'd come to Portland for the music. The experience. A weekend escape from work stress. Checked into room 447 with her friends earlier that afternoon. Excited for the evening ahead. Also staying at the Riverside Hotel, Carlos Reyes. 36 years old. Tattoo artist from Seattle. Colombian descent. Reyes had an extensive criminal history that would later become crucial to the investigation. 2 prior arrests for assault. 1 conviction for drug possession. And a restraining order filed by an ex-girlfriend alleging domestic violence. He was staying in room 452. Just 5 doors down from Madison's room. They would never formally meet. But their paths would intersect in that 4th-floor corridor in the early morning hours of August 19th. Captured by a security camera that neither of them knew was recording. Madison and her friends attended the music festival that evening, arriving at the venue around 7 p.m. According to friend statements given to police later, Madison drank moderately throughout the night. 2 beers over 4 hours. She was happy, dancing, enjoying the music. No signs of excessive intoxication. But at approximately 1:30 a.m. after returning to the hotel bar for one final drink before bed, something changed. Madison ordered a vodka cranberry. 1:42 a.m. Within 20 minutes, her condition deteriorated dramatically. By 2:05 a.m., Madison was slumped at a table, struggling to keep her eyes open. Head lolling. Speech slurred beyond comprehension. Her friends had already gone upstairs believing Madison was right behind them. Standard end-of-night assumption. She'd catch up. Toxicology reports would later reveal why. Madison Cooper had been drugged. GHB, commonly known as a date rape drug, was found in her system at levels consistent with involuntary ingestion. Not recreational use. Not accidental. Someone had dosed her drink. 2:34 a.m. hotel lobby footage shows Madison attempting to leave the bar area. She can barely walk. Stumbling. Grabbing furniture for support. A hotel employee notices. Asks if she needs help. Madison, in her compromised state, mumbles something about going to her room. Waves him off. The employee, overwhelmed with festival crowd chaos and multiple complaints flooding the front desk, lets her go. It's a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Madison makes it to the elevator bank. 4th floor button pressed. Elevator doors close. 2:46 a.m. She exits onto the 4th floor. Stumbles immediately upon stepping out. This is where the critical footage begins. The 15 seconds that would define the entire case. Camera 4F02 positioned at the east end of the corridor captures everything. Madison enters frame from the left. Her bright yellow dress immediately visible against the dim hallway. Fluorescent lights overhead making everything look washed out and surreal. She is visibly impaired, unable to walk in a straight line, using the wall constantly for balance. Hand dragging, feet shuffling, movements slow, uncoordinated, the clear behavior of someone who is not in control of their faculties. Then 8 feet behind her, Carlos Reyes enters the frame. Shirtless except for a black leather vest. Tattooed arms and chest visible even in the low-resolution footage. His walk is purposeful, deliberate, measured. He is not stumbling. He is not impaired. He is not drunk or disoriented. He is following her. The camera records them both moving down the corridor until they exit the right side of the frame, heading toward rooms 447 and 452. 15 seconds. Then the footage ends. But the nightmare was just beginning. 3:17 a.m. Hotel security receives a noise complaint from room 449. Loud banging. A woman's voice, though the guest filing the complaint couldn't make out words. Just distress. Something wrong. Security makes a note in the log, but doesn't investigate immediately due to high volume of festival-related disturbances that night. Prioritization failure. 6:42 a.m. Madison's friends knock on her door. Worried because she hasn't responded to texts since they went to bed. No answer. They call hotel security. 7:03 a.m. Hotel staff opens room 447 with master key. Madison Cooper is found unresponsive on the bed, partially undressed, not breathing. Paramedics called immediately. She's transported to Legacy Emmanuel Medical Center where she's pronounced dead at 7:51 a.m. Cause of death: acute GHB overdose combined with positional asphyxia. The medical examiner notes injuries consistent with sexual assault. Portland police immediately launched a homicide investigation. First critical question: who was the last person to see Madison alive? Hotel security provided all footage from the 4th floor. That's when investigators discovered the 2:47 a.m. corridor footage. Madison stumbling. Carlos Reyes following 8 feet behind. 9:15 a.m. detectives knock on room 452. Carlos Reyes answers. Appears calm. Composed even. When asked about the previous night, he initially claims he'd been asleep since midnight. Hadn't left his room. Hadn't seen anything. Then detectives show him the footage. His story changes immediately. Reyes admits he followed Madison down the hall. Admits he went into her room. Initially claims everything that happened was consensual. States she was tipsy but coherent. But faced with the evidence, the camera showing Madison's condition, biological traces found on the victim, toxicology results proving GHB, Carlos Reyes could no longer maintain the lie. He confessed. Admitted to following her from the bar. Putting GHB in her cocktail when she was distracted. Stated his goal was to render her helpless. Claimed to have had sexual intercourse with her. Said he panicked when she became unresponsive. Left her there without calling for help. If you're wondering how surveillance footage becomes the only witness that matters when everyone else looked away, subscribe to The Last Moment. Because what happens in court next changes how consent is legally defined. Carlos Reyes arrested and charged with murder, sexual assault, and administering a controlled substance. The case would hinge on one question. Could someone in Madison's condition as clearly shown in the security footage consent to anything? Trial of Carlos Reyes began March 6, 2023. Prosecution's case built on 3 pillars: the security footage, the toxicology report, and Reyes's own confession. The 15-second corridor footage was played for the jury repeatedly. Prosecutors argued it showed a predator following a clearly incapacitated victim whose condition was a direct result of Reyes's deliberate actions. "Look at her," the prosecutor said, pausing the video mid-frame. "She can barely stand. She's using the wall for support with every step. Now look at him walking steadily, purposefully, following her. This is not two people going back to a room together. This is a predator tracking prey whose vulnerability he manufactured." Toxicology expert Dr. Linda Marsh testified that GHB levels in Madison's system were consistent with a dose that would render someone unable to consent, unable to resist, and at high risk of respiratory depression. At these levels, Dr. Marsh stated, Madison Cooper would have been physically incapable of meaningful consent. Her motor functions, cognitive ability, and decision-making were severely compromised. The defense had little room to maneuver against the footage, the toxicology, and the confession. They attempted to argue Reyes hadn't intended to kill her, framing the death as a tragic accident after a criminal act. But the jury rejected the notion that the crime was anything less than murder. March 24, 2023. After 6 hours of deliberation, the jury returned a verdict. Guilty on all counts. Carlos Reyes was sentenced to 35 years in prison without possibility of parole. The Riverside Hotel settled a wrongful death lawsuit with Madison's family for $2.3 million financial compensation that could never replace what they'd lost, and implemented comprehensive staff training on recognizing signs of drugging and assault. The case inspired Madison's law in Oregon requiring bars and hotels to install additional security measures and mandate intervention when staff witness visibly incapacitated individuals. The 15-second footage remains a teaching tool in law enforcement academies across the country. A stark visual reminder that sometimes the most important evidence is what a camera captures when no one thinks they're being watched. Madison Cooper's family established a foundation in her name, focused on date rape drug awareness and bystander intervention training. Her mother speaks at college campuses regularly, always shows that corridor footage, always asks students the same question: if you saw this, would you intervene? The security camera didn't save Madison's life, but it ensured her death wasn't in vain, that her killer faced justice, and that her story became a catalyst for change. 15 seconds of grainy footage that captured a predator in action and refused to let him hide behind lies about consent. This is the last moment, where the cameras never blink even when everyone else looks away. If this case changed how you think about bystander intervention and recognizing predatory behavior, hit that like button. Subscribe to The Last Moment so you never miss another investigation into the evidence that matters. Share this video, because somewhere right now, someone is seeing something that doesn't look right. Someone is witnessing a person who's too impaired to defend themselves, and they're deciding whether to intervene or walk away. Comment below, have you ever intervened in a situation that felt wrong? What made you act when others didn't? This case is a stark reminder of how vulnerable we all are. How critical it is to stay vigilant. Look out for one another. Never ignore warning signs. If you see someone who appears incapacitated and vulnerable, intervene. You could be the difference between a victim getting home safely or becoming another tragedy. Justice for Madison Cooper. We'll see you in the next one.